Hey, we're back. What's up, guys? Back here on prediction. Gonna get through the rest of the bets here. Look, I'm still giving out the best bets in the world. If the tech falls apart, I think that's just the sports books not wanting you to know all the hot takes I'm giving out here that are gonna cost them millions of dollars, I'm sure, from all the ones and ones you guys watching live. Let's talk some rookie of the year, though. I'd like to get some of the guests on because I do appreciate all of our guys hanging out right now, both on YouTube and on prediction right at this moment in time. Rookie of the year, though, some big plays coming on. There's some that I have a lot of affinity to in my heart. I don't think are the best plays. And the guy leading the way, number one overall pick, the star of Hard Knocks right now, Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is at plus 135 odds currently to win Rookie of the Year. So he's the Tyler. Oh, okay, we got our boy Tyler coming on. There we go. He'll, if anything's going to fix this, it's our boy Tyler. So let's see what he can do in a moment. But Caleb Williams plus 135, not my favorite Rookie of the Year pick. We will find out what Tyler's got to think about that in a moment or two. Perhaps should I keep stalling? Caleb Williams, though. Okay. All right, good. So Caleb Williams to me, he's the favorite right now. To be honest, I wouldn't place the bet. The bet that I would place is not going to shock you guys. It would be Jane Daniels plus 475. I talked about it with the Commanders bit a little bit. Jane Daniels coming in, most pure passer, most pure rusher. He's bringing a lot of metrics here. And this is something I talked about on Splash Play this morning on the draft stream I did, of course, drafting our usual underdog teams. I'm wearing the shirt even here, even on professional streams, other platforms. I'm always repping my underdog. Let's talk about a little bit this morning. Okay, here comes Tyler. Let's see what Tyler thinks about Jane Daniels. Oh, hey, what's going on?
What's going on, Spags?
This is a different Tyler than I was expecting. What's going on?
What's up, man? So I'm sitting here looking at some most passing yards player props,
Okay.
like the leader. And I heard you're not too high on my boy Aaron Rodgers. I'm a Jets fan. I think he's going for some good numbers this year. But I'm just curious who you think would be the top right now is CJ Stroud. Who do you think is going to lead the league in passing yards?
Passing yards was not something we were going to do on this show, but if I were to make my bet, it probably would be CJ Stroud. He's a guy that has the weapons. He's a guy that has the incentive. And it's something, too, that I think sometimes people miss. And I get, look, the AR love if you're a Jets fan. Like, I certainly understand that. Finally having a QB that has the brand name that's done something in the past. Like, I hope it works out for you guys. Two of my best friends are Jets fans. I grew up in New York. Like, I get it. That said, you don't want the older guy who's been through it before, even though Tom Brady showed us you certainly can have that renaissance like he did for the Bucks. I think overall for Aaron Rodgers, my concern is just that you have that defense. I feel like even the Vegas totals right now supporting a lot of like 21-17 kind of games. It's not where
Mm.
you want to be. Where you want to be is a young guy who still hasn't earned, who hasn't won the Super Bowl, who hasn't had the MVPs, hasn't had that success. So Stroud to me in this offense where you add in, Nico Collins, obviously the big year last year. Tank Dell is now a wide receiver 3, a luxury at that position. He'd probably be most teams' wide receiver 2. You also have Diggs coming in. You have Schultz. You have the running game looking better, most likely with Joe Mixon. I think he's the obvious one to take because he has really second year upside. The year 1 to year 2 leap is the biggest thing you can always have in betting and fantasy and all that stuff. So I would go Stroud personally. We're going to talk MVP in a little bit. I think Stroud's live for MVP, but it doesn't mean AR is dead, Tyler. I'll give you that.
I appreciate that, man. I'm hoping AR can pull the rabbit out of the hat this year.
The original AR, not the good AR, who's who's now Anthony Richardson. I think we can all
Yes,
agree.
yes, yeah. All right,
All right.
thank you, man.
Shout out Tyler. Thanks, Tyler, for being on here. The system works, guys. We got one thing going right. We got a lot to talk about here in the Rookie of the Year stuff as well. And we can funnel through, Caleb, whenever you want to funnel through more guests, just give me the heads up and we can just keep doing it. All right, cool. So we got Jane Daniels plus 475. So making the case for him. Look, I believe in the guy more than anything. If I were to tell you anything about one player that shocked me, it was going through Jane Daniels box scores. And again, like I look at all the data, I look at the high level analytics and stuff. Sports Info Solutions is a site that provides me a lot of great utility with that. But looking at just the pure box scores of Jane Daniels last year, he had games where he threw 4 touchdowns, also ran for 100 yards, also ran for 2 touchdowns. There's a ceiling to Jane Daniels that I don't think this is the hot take, guys. This is what you're tuning in for. Hopefully, you're sticking with me through weird audio issues and all that. The reason here that you want to do these kind of bets on guys like Jane Daniels, he might be a one of one, and I really do believe that. And I know it's a hot take. It's tough to soapbox that much for a guy that you've probably seen people critique him a lot on social media. He's 23. He's old. He's been played college football for 10 years. Doesn't matter in the modern NFL. Right now, he's still young enough, still fast enough. He's ready to go. And I really do think that he'd be my pick at Rookie of the Year, even if he were at plus 200. Plus 475, I think you're getting basically a gift from God on that one. Marvin Harrison, number 3 at plus 650 odds. I think he's a viable pick. Hard for a receiver to win it unless the two QBs fail. Two guys that are really national topic makers. Caleb Williams already has ad campaigns for himself. Jane Daniels, he cares so much about ball. He can't possibly be doing ads. But those guys are really going to be national presences, I think. Marvin Harrison, I think, can have one of the greatest rookie wide receiver years ever, which is tough to say, given that we just saw somebody have one of the greatest rookie wide receiver years last year with Puka Nacua. That said, to me, Harrison coming in, giving that kind of production like Puka had, I think we're going to see that from day one. So Marvin Harrison, I don't hate the bet. Plus 650, though. Give me a little bit more juice on Jaden Daniels, and I'd do it 10 times out of 10. Bo Nix is kind of interesting at plus 1,000. Again, hard to overcome the lack of national pedigree. Probably hard to overcome as well. Just the sins of the SEC past. The fact that a lot of people thought Bo Nix was trash. They're not going to see him on a national stage. For a Broncos team, that's probably not going to score a lot of points. They're going to think he's trash again, even if he's doing perfectly well playing within the system, playing within himself. Like Bo Nix a lot as a player. Do not know that I have the faith in Bo Nix at plus 1,000, but he's a top 4 vote getter right now, top 4 odds getter right now. Would be the best way to say that. So Bo Nix at plus 1,000, more than Malik Neighbors at plus 1,100, which is kind of crazy. I think if you're going to make the bet for value, Malik Neighbors is certainly a consideration. A guy who's going to be targeting, really dominating that Giants offense overall. He's a player that I really like a lot. That said, same thing for him. Hard to overcome the high-profile national QBs that we've seen that people have been talking about for years, really. Of course, Jaden coming off the Heisman win, Caleb the year before that. I think it's hard to overcome that. So as long as those two guys are healthy, I think they're the obvious picks. But definitely some value in Malik Neighbors if he is going at plus 1,100, compared to Bo Nix going at plus 1,000. My long shot pick, though, you can see popping up on the screen right now, Brian Thomas Jr. So it's tough for him. It's tough for me to project him out. But at plus 5,000, a guy who last year put up double-digit touchdowns at LSU, a guy who also this year being used the same way. The target earning was not great in college. He was roughly about 22% target per out run, which is not where you want to be as like a star receiver. You generally want to be 30%, 35%. Those numbers can hold up a little bit better in the pros. 20%, you're getting a little bit thin, a little bit lean. We're talking about a superior athlete as Brian Thomas Jr. You're talking about a Jaguars team that's going to want to pass a good amount as well. I do think that for Brian Thomas Jr., out of any of the receivers, I think there's probably the most value on him at plus 5,000. Is he likely to win? Again, no. The likely winner is probably Caleb. I think the best value is on Jaden. But if you're talking about just a long shot one, put it in $10, give yourself shots, win 50K. I think that's the kind of bet you can make on Brian Thomas Jr. Got anybody else that we want to bring on as a guest right now before we go into the MVP game? Cut out a little bit, but okay. Oh no. Okay. Well, if you do want guys want to come on here on prediction, please do hop onto the link. I'll drop it in the chat one more time now that we got everything up and running. And either way, I'm going to get all my takes out today, guys. So stay tuned for that one. No matter what, here, dropping the link in chat. Not too late to get in. Prediction.com. Preee. Did I drop? I dropped too many E's there. Preee. Diction.com. MVP. Let's talk MVP here. So got the man, the thumbnail once again, Patrick Mahomes. He's the one leading the way here. Obviously, makes sense, right? Chiefs going to win over 11 and a half games, according to the markets right now. Patrick Mahomes, potential Super Bowl winner again. He's probably the MVP favorite. That said, much like Caleb Williams, I just don't think there's a line you actually want to take. Mahomes going for MVP. Last year, getting the ball out fast was a priority for them. The Chiefs' ADOT fell off the cliff. What did we see last year happening at the same time? Brought a new offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy. Now, granted, he's not the play caller there. That's always Andy Reid. But it is still something where we saw this offense materially change, designed to keep Patrick Mahomes clean, designed to make it so he's going to be able to stay upright, so he's not gipping around like he was the year before last, the Super Bowl versus the Eagles. So that's where they want to keep Mahomes. Really find it hard to believe he can get that killer production at the position, given the fact that he really is a guy that is going to need to stay safe. Like, this is a team that's playing to be a dynasty. They're not playing to put up 400 yards passing in week 11. So where for Mahomes, just think the value's not there. It's not the kind of pick I'd want to go to. Josh Allen at plus 850, a little more interesting there. We're talking about the rushing upside, the ability to put up a monster year with pass game production and maybe even put up 15 rushing touchdowns. I think would not be crazy for Josh Allen to be able to pull off in this offense. That said, I do think this cast a little bit weaker. He is a player that the team probably has to win enough in order for him to make it an MVP. I do think that's something where I have some concern about that. Yeah, good. All right, Tony, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on? How are you today?
I'm good. Just talking some MVP bets, but I want to know what you want to know about. I'm glad to have you on, and glad we've got somebody with great camera behind you. And Star Wars, those stormtroopers are gigantic.
they're watching over me, making sure that
Got to protect you,
everything
slash,
everything's
you know,
kosher.
encroach
Well,
upon people's rights and such. Yeah.
yeah, but the aim isn't great, so I'm not in any danger. So going back just a little bit, so like which team that drafted in the top 5 do you think has the best shot at a turnaround this year?
Which team drafting in the top 5 is the best shot? I mean, I think the markets would certainly agree. It's going to be Caleb Williams and the Bears. They've definitely been enough of a win total boost there for them that I think it stood out. I talked about it before, being at about 9.5 on most markets. Might moved around a little bit recently, but that's generally where it's been throughout the summer. Yeah, look, I think it's tough because they have the weight of Chicago on them for sure, but it's a tough division. Beating out Detroit's tough. Surviving the Packers, who I do think we talked about earlier, seemed like a pretty decent win total on the over there at 9.5. Even Minnesota, I think, is a pretty feisty team. But if you look at Chicago, what they've done adding weapons, whenever you see the signal from the team like that, which same thing for Houston, where they acquire a Keenan Allen, where they bring in Romo Dunze at the top 10 pick, that commitment to making the team good for the player coming in, giving him the best runway possible. And for Caleb, they crowned him the number 1 QB, from day one. You have a defense too that came along pretty well after the Montez Sweat trade last year. So some good cornerbacks in that room as well. I think the Bears are kind of live. It's tough to expect them to win that division because the Lions should be so good. But I think if I were to put any money on it, I definitely would say, to me, the Bears should be the team to make the leap. But I don't know. What do you think, Tony?
I no opinion. I kind of wanted to hear where you were at on that one. So yeah, no,
Hey, I
that's kind
appreciate
of
it.
it,
Look,
really.
take it to the bank, Tony. That's what we say, right? That's
There
what
you
betting
go.
is. It's all just sure things,
Exactly.
great investments, and all that. But I appreciate
Exactly.
it, Tony. Thanks for coming on.
Right on, man. Thank you so much.
All right. So shout out to Tony. And again, you want to get in here, check the prediction link. Just dropped it in chat. It's also pinned in the YouTube chat right now if you want to come on here. And hopefully it'll work. See some people in chat saying it wouldn't load your camera. Try your best if you want to get on here. Other MVP picks. So Josh Allen, to kind of sum it up, he's a viable pick. Wouldn't hate it at plus 850. Think he's a much better pick with nearly double the payout to you as you would get for Patrick Mahomes. But really, to me, the pick comes down to number 3. CJ Stroud at plus 850. Stroud, to me, making this leap, doing something where he can finally be a guy that, not even finally, we're talking year 2, but could be a guy that immediately makes that leap into the upper echelon. I think he's a lot better play than the guy who's coming right behind him at plus 900, Joe Burrow. Stroud, to me, having all the weapons, having the team as well that clearly is buying in what they're doing in terms of changing the culture for a Houston team that really struggled a lot. I really think for Stroud, he's got the weapons, he's got the ability, and frankly, even if he doesn't go for 5,000 plus passing yards, maybe even 6,000, if he doesn't do that, that defense can carry him to enough wins, and maybe he puts up 3 touchdown games along the way as the defense cruises. So I expect really big games for Houston this year. I expect them to be the kind of team that puts it down, scores 50 plus points on people a few times this year. I think for Stroud, I really do believe that even the way he talks about things publicly, like I think he's building the national persona in a way that make you feel like you're getting some value on the odds overall for Stroud. Joe Burrow, I talked about, just not the biggest fan there. The wrist injury, some of the lingering stuff. Jordan Love at plus 1,400, a player that I think people will be excited to take from time to time. Certainly the Packers bets, as we talked about, that over 9.5 line. You probably want to pair some Jordan Love with that on some cards if you are a big Packers fan. For Jordan Love, though, I think the case for him to be the MVP would really be one where this team throws a lot of what it's been in the past out the window, where it has been a run-heavy team, run-dominant team with 2 RBs going. For Jordan Love, I think that he's the kind of player that to win MVP, he would need to be running himself. He would need to be throwing for these outlier passing yardage games. And he can do that, but it's just not going to be that clean, splitting target shares between Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft. You have Jacobs in there, siphoning some goal line touches away. Hopefully my boy Marshawn Lloyd gets there. It's a lot of weapons to go away from Jordan Love having the full opportunity to get there. And personally, look, I think he made some strides last year. They had to pay him. He had to make those moves when he figured things out at the home stretch and help you beat the Cowboys in Dallas. But I have some questions if Jordan Love is actually in this tier. And where he's priced right now, number 5 overall odds. I'd rather have this next guy at the exact same odds, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts plus 1,400. New Kellen Moore offense coming in. Team last year really did not have the right coaches at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. This year, they bring in Vic Fangio on defense. Kellen Moore, who to me is one of the greatest minds in offense right now, or at least young minds in offense in the NFL. Him at plus 1,400 feels pretty good. And with Hurts, maybe you lose the tush push a little bit more, but you also maybe see the offense opened up in a way where people can finally appreciate him as what he is, a passer, which is really tremendously skilled, even going back to his OU days. Now you add that in with the rushing. I think Hurts, to me, I like Stroud a lot. I think the value on Hurts at plus 1,400 out of all the top 8 guys, might be the strongest value. And to me, that's just what Hurts is. I am in the Philly area, of course. So legally, if I didn't say that, I would have to go outside and they would stone me. They would bury me up to my head and stone me if I spoke ill of Jalen Hurts. That said, I really do fundamentally believe that this offense should be the best, purest version overall for our boy Jalen Hurts. We got Aaron Rodgers at plus 1,600. I got Tyler at the beginning of the video. Thought it was going to be a different Tyler. It said it was a Tyler that loves Aaron Rodgers, and I'm excited for his excitement. That said, for Rodgers at plus 1,600, I just don't see it there. Really think that even if this Jets team wins more than I would have ever thought possible, I think the Jets are going to be a team that at plus 1,600, or Aaron Rodgers at plus 1,600, I just don't think he can actually pay that off. Really, the best case for Aaron Rodgers to win MVP would be the defense falling apart, the defense being crippled, the defense being a shell of what it's been for the last 2 years. I personally don't see that happening. And really, that's what it comes down to. Like, you got to think about what does a team need to do for this team, this player to have success and have the kind of success that could be an MVP. So you're talking about winning enough games, creating enough production, being central enough to their victory. Find it hard to believe that the Jets can win enough games that Aaron Rodgers being central to everything that they do at this point in his career. So Aaron Rodgers at plus 1,600, I would say a bit of a fool's gold there for what you would take from him. Dak Prescott plus 1,800, player that I've talked about earlier, just the Cowboys, a little bit of stink on them, even the way they're handling RB. Look, I know people out there watching this video might go, Dalvin Cook, a name that I know, a vet presence. That said, for Dalvin Cook, he is a player that's best days were behind him. He's in great shape now, looks ripped to the gills. That doesn't mean he's going to be good at football anymore. We saw him have no juice last year, get outplayed by multiple Jets RBs. So for Dalvin Cook, that addition doesn't do a lot for me. Not adding anybody real at receiver. I think Brandon Cooks is talented. I think Jalen Tolbert's okay. Jalen Brooks, the depth chart at receivers, not bad, but it's definitely not good either. I think Dak at plus 1,800. If they win, it's probably going to be on his back. But that said, if they win, I don't know that they win enough games for him to be the MVP. So to me, Dak Prescott, not my favorite bet. The long shot bet, though, that I would go with, another plus 5,000 one for the MVP here, I would go Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray at plus 5,000 feels like a pretty strong play to go to overall. For Kyler, the benefit for him would be really, again, a team that should be pretty good on defense. Jonathan Gannon, the head coach there, getting a system going in year one. The defense wasn't great, should be improved in year two, but it won't be so good that it takes the onus off of Kyler to produce and be a guy that puts up big yardage passing, puts up big yardage running. It's hard to expect the Cardinals to win. Again, we talked about their win line being 6.5 wins. That said, I think they can get to 10, 11 potentially if things were to go their right way. Don't know they could win the NFC West, but I think if you see the Cardinals be even competitive with the Niners for the NFC West, probably see some MVP hype going Kyler's way. So would be interesting to see, given the fact this was a guy a year ago. Some people out there thought he might get traded, he might get moved because of the fact that he wasn't part of this new regime. Instead, he gets immediately and indoctrinates himself with this team. Clearly, a key part of what they want to do in the future moving forward. So for Kyler at plus 5,000, I think he really is a strong pick here relative to the fact that that is, again, very low probability overall of hitting. Guys, if you're watching this one live, if you're watching it on YouTube after the fact as well, show some love, hit that like button, leave a comment if you're watching too. And of course, if you want to go join me on prediction, there is a pinned chat right now in the YouTube chat. You can also check the link right now. But, well, whatever. You can check the link, but go search prediction.com. And again, check out prediction for yourself. Really appreciate them giving me the opportunity here. Of course, we got to work through some tech hurdles for sure. But we got some good stuff going on in prediction, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. We got somebody online. Yeah. My thoughts on correlates. That's an interesting question. Certainly for win totals for MVP, that's stuff. What was that, Caleb? Sorry. Oh, from our guy Daniel, of course. Some of you may know him as Robert Griffin the Turd in the community, but our guy Daniel asking that question. So for season long stuff, win totals, MVP going to correlate pretty closely because you do have to win enough games to be an MVP. It's hard to be an MVP. You would have to have the year of all years to make it as a losing player, or as a losing team rather. So for me, I think that would be the first thing to look at. Passing yardage overs, I think, would be pretty good for most of the QB picks. I'd say for rookie of the year too, really any of the longitudinal player awards, I think pairing some of the mileage of that, with the yardage props would be pretty easy to do, especially for the rookie of the year stuff. Like to beat a Caleb prop, you're really not looking at a huge line there. Let me see if I could pull it up real fast because we did not pull all of the numbers in the world in advance. But let's see, futures. I don't want to bog down the stream too much. But for a guy like Caleb, the market line for his prop is probably not going to be as high as, let's say, it would have to be for touchdowns, for yardage, even for rushing touchdowns. Like probably not as high as it would be for him to win the rookie of the year and to be able to beat out all the guys who are going to be in competition for that. So you could start to pair that together. Some books might bar you from making those bets. I don't know why they would, because futures really are juice to the gills anyway. But there are some books that might stop you from doing that. But if you have a book that you can place those bets on, correlating those kind of bets together, I think especially for MVP, but for Rookie of the Year, win total with MVP. I would say passing yards if it's a QB, rushing if you wanted to take an RB kind of player, or receiving if you want to take a receiver, though those guys don't win MVP very often, so keep that in mind. But I'd say those are probably the bets that correlate the most closely. For Rookie of the Year, think less about win total, more about taking overs on every prop line. I think would be what you do, talking touchdown overs, yardage overs. I think that makes the most sense. But, like a guy like Jaden, I would take overs on everything for him and see if it hits. I think if you're in a state that can do that. We got to get to Super Bowl winners here, I think. So we'll go a little more long form on this one. We'll see if anybody else joins in here with any good chat questions. Super Bowl winner. So Chiefs right now leading the pack, plus 500. The Chiefs outlook getting even better, adding guys like Samaje Perine. It's not the most exciting play in the world to have a guy like Samaje Perine added to your team, but it is the kind of play that wins you Super Bowls. Like it's a little bit, distilling things a little bit too simply, but a player that can pass block, a player that can come in and still give you some good run plays while you're throwing off the defense, because the guy's usually not running the ball too much. Player's also going to, protect well. It's really like a key thing here. Getting out and getting some routes, getting some catches. A lot of guys can do that. Perine does that part really well too. So just having that vet presence, a guy who's been there, guy's been in some of the playoff battles, I think does help him out. The Chiefs, really the biggest thing is, again, that defense last year. And they lost some guys. Defense not always sticky year to year. That defense last year shut down a lot of players. And actually, it's almost to the point where I want to read some numbers out to you guys, because I was looking at them before and was like, wow, I really can't believe how good the KC defense was last year. Mentioned it earlier, though, negative 0.2 EPA per dropback, negative 0.2 EPA per pass, negative 0.02 EPA per rush, which is a little more close to the middle of the pack. Basically, they shut down pass plays really well. When you got to the red zone, they also completely shut it down. Negative 0.1 EPA per red zone rush, negative 0.23 EPA per red zone pass. The defense last year was one of the best defenses in the league, and that was one thing I think people missed amidst all the stuff. And somewhere along the way, people have talked themselves into the Chiefs being, the early 2000s, late 90s Rams. That's not what the Chiefs are. This is a team that passes at a high rate, but it's meant to be fast. It's meant to get the ball out quickly. It's meant to use motion, some of the cheat motion stuff to get guys into spaces. It's not meant for guys to go back and drop back and have the biggest yardage games. So to me, the Chiefs being the Super Bowl favorite makes total sense. I get it. Don't know I'd want to take that bet at plus 500, but definitely a bet that is going to be a popular one to hit. Another popular one you can see on the screen coming up right now, Niners at plus 600. You got Ravens plus 1,000. We'll talk about all these teams here. Lions at plus 1,200. Bengals at plus 1,300. Eagles at plus 1,500. And the Bills also at plus 1,500. And not making the chart here, I believe, is the Texans, who made it at plus 1,600. So a lot of familiar names here. The Niners at plus 600, a team that I think, again, people gravitate towards. No issue with it. Where you make the big money on these, though, is not really these plus 500 bets, these plus 600 bets. Taking the favorite for Super Bowl futures, to me, is not the way to go about this, especially if you're trying to be a regular futures bettor. One of my friends, Greg Ehrenberg at Stochastic, has done a lot of stuff in the future space. In general, a lot of success, too. He's picked out Cy Young winners, Super Bowl winners, like NBA Finals winners early at really advantageous times. A lot of it comes down to just being mindful of when you're placing the bets. So let's say Chiefs get completely barnstormed 1 week. I was going to use a less favorable expression than that, but I'll use the PG version of that. They get barnstormed. So the Chiefs get killed 1 week. You still think the Chiefs are a good team, right? Let's say all their underlying metrics are good. Mahomes looks good. They pass the eye test, or whatever that matters. You place your bet on the futures for the Chiefs when they're at a low point, when they're at a point where it's like nobody believes in them now, because that probably is a time period where you're going to get the best odds on it. And also you're going to hopefully flip it around. And that doesn't always work. Last year in playoff best ball, even a couple futures bets I took, did take some Eagles ones just because I was like, this team is running so bad right now. Everything's falling apart. The signal was there for what happened down the home stretch of them just, basically busting out completely in the playoffs. But that said, for the Eagles last year, they were a team that you had good value on because of what they represented. And if the bet didn't win, taking a team that was once, a top 3 Super Bowl favorite, taking them when they're on the way down and the odds are a little bit less, juice to the gills, that's where your best opportunity is. So you take your Chiefs, you can take your Niners. Ultimately, I don't think it's really what futures betting is meant to be, even though those are obviously the 2 favorites for pretty good reason. The team that starts to get a little more interesting, plus 1,000 for the Ravens. The Ravens we see year after year, the defense, no matter who's out there, the positionless defense they play keeps finding success. And maybe this year a little bit less so, losing Mike McDonald as he's now the head coach of the Seahawks. But still, it's a team that overall for the Ravens that has the good offense, has Lamar. It's probably all it comes down to. has good play calling as well with Todd Monken on the offense. I think this bet's okay. Oh, we got Daniel. All right, we got Daniel ready to come on. Let's do it. Daniel, what's going on? Is this my favorite
What?
Daniel?
Oh, it's your favorite Daniel, buddy. How
How's it
you
going, dude?
Hey. Well, yeah, we're doing great. We're filming in Buffalo Bill's basement right now, and there's
Are
little
you
bit of a
putting lunch in the
segue here.
basket as requested?
Oh,
Okay,
of
good.
course, yes, I'm all tucked in and everything. So Christopher, there is a sharp segue here regarding
Mhm.
Buffalo Bill. Um, what's your favorite under for the season?
Favorite under. Well, I think you wouldn't want to hear this one. My favorite under is probably the Jets win total under. I think that
Oh,
would be my favorite.
yeah, I
But
would agree.
like, uh,
Uh, that's a good one. I'm personally of the mind a lot of Buffalo unders could be fun to take this year.
are you
And
pairing them with some Jets overs for yourself so the Jets could succeed and the
no,
Bills will fall apart?
no. I'm not a disgusting homer like that, buddy. Uh, I just have a feeling that uh, the wheels are just going to fall off on the Bills' offense, and yeah, it's no Stephon Diggs. Can't imagine the passing numbers would be great for Mr. Allen and the receiving core around him.
I think it's a reasonable bet. I mean, if you were to fade the Bills, I think the win totals are certainly a way you could do that. I would think really the way to fade Josh Allen, the way that you're talking about, fading the passing yardage, going in under on that. Sometimes the payoffs aren't quite as good for the unders, but it's still one where I think that's the credible case you could make there. I still am a believer in the Bills. I believe in the talent there. I also do believe that when you have a QB like Josh Allen, who can be a little more target agnostic and spread the ball around, like I think it makes sense to go there. But that said, I think the case you're making here when you lose that much talent at receiver, and whether the talent was being full go or not the last year with Stephon Diggs and how that went down the home stretch, I can't say for sure. But I would say that for them, you lose that much talent, you can make the case. Like you can always make the case in betting. You know that better than anybody. But really, to me, it's Jets unders, right? It's got to be Jets unders.
Oh, well, thank you for that, Chris.
Anything else you want to get off your
Eh,
chest here? Now, this
No,
for anybody who's watching the stream, by the way, Daniel, one of our regulars here. I don't want to give away his full identity here, but our guy Robert Griffin III normally in the community. So a beloved part of the community, one of my favorite people. So I'm glad to have you on the stream either way. This one of the success of the stream today will be getting you on camera no matter what.
yeah, yeah, I'm real, buddy. Nice to meet you in person.
Shout out to our guy Daniel. Appreciate him here. Anything else you want? You get the floor is yours. Oh no, you're gone. Never mind. Get out of here, Daniel. No, you're good, Caleb. Don't worry about it. If anybody else comes in, just interrupt me and we can hop in some more. Um, let's keep going through the Super Bowl winners, though, and I'll go long form on them here because this is basically we're trying to make our final argument down the home stretch. And we also, all right, we got 15 minutes. I have filled time tremendously here, guys. And I think, if anything, if you want to give me credit for anything, I always fill time. But I normally have a draft screen with me. I've got data points. I'm just going here. I'm just freewheeling it. So please, please applaud me, the person you're watching on camera right now. Lions plus 1200. This is another one too. I think we're talking about. I would right away again for all these futures. Really, I would almost always throw out the top one, at least maybe top two guys, just because the payout for hitting those futures is really not where you want to be, especially this time of year. And it's going to move around. You're going to get better lines on the top favorites right now as the year goes on, and they hit those hurdles, they hit those road bumps. The Lions, though, at plus 1200, a team that last year was like so close to being where they need to be, catastrophic, falling apart against the Niners down the home stretch, but a team that really I think has made the strides. They are somebody, if you wanted to critique them a little bit, kind of like the Bills. They have really done some, I would say, shrinking down of the wide receiver core. Khalif Raymond, wide receiver 3 now. Tim Patrick, wide receiver 3. These guys aren't fundamentally much better than Josh Reynolds, but they are at least a lateral move, if not a move downward. That's not necessarily where you want to be. Now, the hope is that Jamison Williams takes a leap forward, year 3 for him, with a lot of missed time due to the gambling suspension, injuries, and all that. You also have Amon-Ra St. Brown, if you watch receiver, a guy it's hard not to root for, a guy who wants to play through every injury, clearly has the upside. Like the Lions a lot. That said, I do think there's some potential that last year, you're playing with house money a little bit. That's the first great Lion season they've had in, I don't know, ever. It's like really the first great Lion season they've had in a while. So that would be my concern for them, really. Still like a plus 1200, them plus 1200, Ravens plus 1000. To me, just infinitely better bets when you're getting, double the money coming back at plus 1200 compared to the Niners, where you're getting plus 600 on that. I think that's where you're getting the value. Rather take these values overall. But the Lions, to me, just a team that I have a lot of faith in. David Montgomery, one of my favorite players overall in terms of best ball, fantasy football this year. And Jahmyr Gibbs, he's the exciting part of that. But David Montgomery, the kind of guy that's going to give you 20 touchdowns in a year, we would hope. Bengals plus 1,300. Out of the top 8 that I put into the sheet, that we had the graphic up before, Bengals to be a plus 1,300, my least favorite. So we have a lot of bad things for the Bengals. And I've tried to articulate in the past why I'm not the biggest Bengals guy. But when you have last year, T. Higgins admits that he phoned in the season because of the fact the contract never came through for him. This year, he's remotivated. It's on the franchise tag, or I guess a deal that's basically the franchise tag. He's playing through it. He's going to do the best he can. We have Jamar Chase coming into practice after holding out for a month and a half. He then comes into practice, leaves practice again, and CeeDee Lamb gets his deal. That's not good. The Bengals are a cheap team. The Bengals have withheld money from Jamar Chase, withheld money from T. Higgins. They paid Joe Burrow. They withheld money from guys on the defense as well. Sometimes that stuff does come home to roost. And you also lose your offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan, who I think is one of the best coaching hires of the offseason for Tennessee. Not a team we're going to expect a lot from this year, but they should look better, especially on offense compared to the previous Mike Vrabel regime. But I would say for the Bengals, they're a team that they're just carrying this vestigial love for them over and over and over again. And I think to the point where people kind of put their fingers in their ears and go, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear that the Bengals might not be this world beater upstart team. So to me, when I see that for the Bengals, I really have concern overall. Joe Burrow, it's not something I would worry about, but his wrist tendons are not in great condition. And that's something that could rear its ugly head again. They really were careful about ramping him up in the offseason. And that was an injury that theoretically should have sorted itself out. You would think by the spring, they were still ramping him up pretty slowly in May, June. So I have concerns for the Bengals. I think that's really what it comes down to. Market lines are market lines. Trust market data over any human being. That's the most important thing for anything in sports betting. But that said, it won't shock you if the Bengals have a little bit of a season from hell coming up in a way that I think the markets are not currently projecting. Team that I would also go for, and again, even though I'm in the Philly area, I am not a Philly person. Grew up in New York, lived in LA, like them both infinitely better. That said, Eagles a plus 1,500. Look, got a little bit of a dead cat bounce there with that team last year after the Super Bowl hangover, whatever you want to call it. A little bit of power struggle going with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, or some of the behind-the-scene reports that have been going on. There's reason to have concerns about the Eagles too, but when you bring in, to me, genius defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, genius offensive coordinator Kellen Moore, and you empower those guys to change the stuff for the Eagles, that's what you're supposed to do as head coach. You get guys in who are better than you. You hope they make the team better. I really do feel like for me, with the Eagles, I think they're going to be a lot better. So to me, the Eagles at plus 1,500, an interesting bet. Again, if I were to say if I were to rank these, I feel like Eagles plus 1,500 would probably be my favorite. Ravens. I feel like Lions would be number 2 for me at plus 1,200. Ravens plus 1,000. But the Eagles, I think, just being slept on a lot. And they're a team where they're not a dark horse, but relative to what they were last year, where they're basically treated as a potential favorite. To see them coming in at plus 1,500, I think it's almost a sign of disrespect. They should be a little bit better, honestly. Jalen Hurts did throw an interception in preseason, guys. He threw one, and it took him weeks to do it. Like, that's not, even though it's practice, it's not easy to do. It's a lot of good signs for the Eagles I think the public's not picking up on. And Saquon is a guy. Saquon's a guy they're paying a lot of money to, and he's got a brand name. That'll be good. Sell some jerseys. That'll be good for him. Bills plus 1,500. So our guy Daniel here talked about it a moment ago. I think there's reasons to fade the Bills. I really don't think the Bills are a team that are going to win the AFC. I, in fact, would take the Texans at plus 1,600, a little bit more money going your way on that one, over the Bills at plus 1,500. I think one thing that people miss sometimes is, like, teams aren't good in the NFL forever. And I do think the Bills, again, still think Josh Allen's really talented, think they're fairly well coached. We'll see if everybody survives this year in the way that they feel like they should. But for the Bills, to me, they're a team where they're not a juggernaut anymore. We've seen in the playoffs last few years that they're not that juggernaut. Last year certainly being, the fulcrum of the downside of what they are in terms of not being a juggernaut. But for the Bills, to me, I think that they and the Bengals both, it's like people are remembering, let's remember the battles versus Mahomes. These guys are going to have more, right? And it's like, no, you have other teams coming in that should be better. The Dolphins, look, Tua has his issues outside. I don't know that I'd ever want to bet on him going into a cold weather game in the playoffs, but the Dolphins at some point can figure that out. He can make a leap. If you like the Jets are a team that last year were a top 10 favorite in the Super Bowl. This year they're now, top half, but not really that great. They're a team as well that maybe they could do more damage if you want to believe that. I don't personally. You have the Texans, again, a team that's on the upswing. You have even a team like the Colts, like maybe they just get strong behind AR, hit the wild card, and then all of a sudden they steamroll a few wins. it can happen with really good coaching. So that's where I think teams like the Bills and Bengals, they're kind of carrying the previous juice of other years. They're carrying their past success a little bit more. And I think that's the best that you really want to avoid the most, where you're paying the tax for previous wins. The same thing for the Chiefs and Niners. You're paying the tax because they were both in the Super Bowl last year, and now they have the same team basically heading into this year. Those are the teams that you really don't want to make those deals for yourself. The Texans at plus 1600, again, talked about wanting to take them over the Bills. That's the kind of team where you see the upside, where the case is really that they're priced right now, it's definitely a little aggressively for a year two QB, but they're priced cheaper in the fact that, this should be a good defense. I don't know if it's going to be a top 10 defense, but it should be better. The offense, I think, should easily be a top five offense. I would hope potentially top three. That's where you're getting the value. It's just the youth, the upside there, the people not being able to foresee what exactly the player is and what the team is yet. So for the Texans, to me, I think it's one of my favorite picks at plus 1600. And, frankly, they're a team too where if you were to pair, our guy Daniel asked before about pairing some bets together. If you were to pair CJ Stroud MVP with Texans to win the Super Bowl, that'd probably be pretty good money coming your way. I would say if you were to pair yardage for CJ Stroud with MVP, with win total, with Super Bowl winner, that's where you get really interesting potentially. But if I were to parlay a bunch of things, oh, we got a Steven. All right. Yeah, so Texans, that's my flag plant. We got Steven coming on right now. Our guy Steven. Hey, Steve, what's going on?
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to see you here. Glad to see some friendly faces. What do you want to talk about?
So, yeah, I'm getting all kinds of double audio
You're
here.
good.
Anyway, I got to talk you off this Patriots over.
Wait, who's over? Oh, Patriots? Are you still mad about that? Look, I'm rooting for
I'm
your
not
boys. I
mad.
think. Are you not a
I'm not
fan of
mad.
them?
It's just that having watched them all preseason,
Mhm.
it's a really ugly offensive line situation. I heard this morning that on DraftKings, it's it's the second highest bet on the total is under on the 4.5 for the Patriots. Um, you know, it's not that I'm down on Drake May. It's just that I'm down on their ability to do anything with that line. The only
Oh wait, sorry, Steve. I was listening to you a little bit there, but I hear what you're saying about the overall situation. I get it, and I get to DraftKings, a Massachusetts company. I think they're probably getting some local action there. It's a little more cynical, but I think ultimately, to me, when you have the young QB, you play him from day one. That's your biggest upside to beat a win total. Like, yeah, Jacoby Brissett, maybe he can win you 1 out of 4 in the early parts, but getting Drake May going on the field, maybe he loses those first 4 games. They give a better shot to win over 4.5 over the back half, the last 13 games. So that's sort of the bet to me. I also think with May, what was encouraging is him coming on strong, like the reports, the constant drumbeat of him looking better. And the fact, too, that I think with what we saw in that last game, look, he left some throws on the field. There's going to be some accuracy issues, but the big plays there that you saw, like that's just not Jacoby Brissett's bag. That's probably not in more than 10 QBs in the league's bag. So that's where the upside would be. But I get it. You have to be a cynical Patriots fan. You probably want the high pick again next year, right?
it doesn't suck if you get the high pick, but May only scored 1 touchdown against the Commanders' backup guys. So let's not get too crazy about what he did out there um, at all. And on the look ahead lines, I believe the Patriots aren't favored in any game this year.
Really, that's it's not
So
surprising. That's a tough one to hear, though.
anyhow, hey, good seeing you, buddy.
Thanks for joining, Steve. Appreciate you being here. Steve, one of my favorites too from back in my stochastic days, and of course on Splash Play too. So glad to see some of my favorite regulars here. And hey, look, I'll be the one to defend the Patriots a little bit. I just think that it's easier to win 4.5 games than you think, especially if a team is not, one that's built to tank, not one that's wired to go to the downside of things. So to me, with the Patriots, I do think that they are a team that I think they're going to go hard. I think they're going to try to win those games, even if they get into the home stretch. I don't think they sit Drake May. I think they play him through it, maybe to his own detriment. But I think for Drake May, the more hope than you've had before, I think, in the last few years at least. And that's what we're hoping for. All right, we got long shot picks here for the Super Bowl, and I'm going to give my official rundown of all the bets that I would give my full-throated approval for here. Long shot pick that interests me, Falcons, plus 3,000. So Falcons importing OC Zach Robinson from the Rams, bringing in new head coach Raheem Morris. They're going to do different things this year, especially on offense, that should put a lot of the pains of the Arthur Smith offense in the rearview mirror. But really, the defense being better, they have spent money on that defense. Raheem Morris, good defensive coach, even though I think he's more of a CEO coach at this point. And look, the Falcons have done a lot of dumb moves. Michael Penix at number 8 would be number 1 amongst them. If you're trying to build a team that wins tomorrow and also has success, that QB in the top 10 picks is not a move you want to do. That said, they're covered now. If Kirk Cousins can't recover from this Achilles, if he were to re-injure it again, if he were to go back out, at least they have a QB who can come in and keep feeding Drake London, keep feeding Kyle Pitts, can keep feeding Darnell Mooney and Ray McLeod and whoever else. Of course, Bijan and Algier out of the backfield. That's my hope for the Falcons, that them being Rams East, being in an NFC South as well, where there's really not a favorite there, they can fall pretty much ass backwards into a playoff spot. If they do fall into a playoff spot, I would love to take shots at that team. I think for playoff best ball, of course, the thing I talk about that I enjoy quite a bit, that's something we're stacking up the Falcons. If they were even at a team that's on the cusp making a playoff spot, I think you want to go that way. They're kind of the perfect team to me that can get hot on offense and have a good enough defense to back it out. So if I were to take a long shot pick, Falcons at plus 3,000 felt like the only one that I could really put my chest behind. But my official picks, so my official ones that I'll go with here, that I'll put, I won't put my money behind on stream right now, but I will give you my full cosign if you want to go chase them. I think the best value is Eagles plus 1,500 to win the Super Bowl. So I don't know that I can give you the full-throated shout here of the Eagles being the best team to win it all, but I like what they've done. I like that we're getting a little bit of value on them because of what we saw last year. At plus 1,500 with the changes they've made in the coaching staff and all that, I think it looks pretty good. An Eagles-Texans Super Bowl matchup, if you're to try to pin both sides of that, it can be hard to pin both sides. Much harder than it could be to pin just Super Bowl winner because you're talking about parlays. Anytime you add another thing that you have to hit right in a bet, it's going to be harder to hit. But if you're to tell me Eagles-Texans, I don't know if that's a high rating Super Bowl. I don't know if that's the best markets for what the NFL would want, but I think that's a really fun Super Bowl that fits a lot of the theories of what I would have. So Eagles plus 1,500, Texans plus 1,600, to me, two of my favorite bets. MVP, if I had to choose one, again, probably would be either Jalen Hurts or CJ Stroud. We're correlating bets, guys. Jalen Hurts at plus 1,400, pretty tempting. Stroud making the year one, year two leap, plus 850, also pretty tempting. I really thought coming into this video that my heart and my mind would unite to say CJ Stroud as my MVP pick. I think Jalen Hurts at plus 1,400 is too good of a bet. So Eagles, what? I don't know if I'm supposed to curse on prediction, guys, but I have to. Eagles, I don't know how this is going to go this year. And I don't want to see the locals here storming the streets about the Eagles doing it all. But I think it's aligning pretty well for them relative to market value and also just a winnable division. Rookie of the year, this is an easy one for me. Jaden at plus 475. I would take that bet 10 times out of 10. I think right now it's priced appropriately. I think after week one, wouldn't shock me to see it go to plus 350. I think there's value right now on Jaden that will not be there by the end of month one, by the end of week one, potentially. I am team Jaden Daniels, and I believe we're going to see that one pretty fast. And for win totals, I think we talked about that. My favorites over on the Texans, 9.5, under on the Jets, 9.5. Commanders, I would take the over on 6.5. That is more of a spiritual, full-throated support there. And Cardinals, really, over 6.5. I think that's a strong one. But these are my predictions, guys. So go find your prediction at prediction.com. That's Pree, Diction. You can spell the rest. Diction.com. And what they're doing is they give you interactive video talk shows like this one where they're connecting athletes, college athletes, a lot of NIL guys. So if you are in the money for boosting these guys, go hang out with them on Prediction. Media personalities, content creators, just like me. They're all coming on Prediction on the regular here. So check it out. Learn more at prediction.com. And thanks to them for giving me this shot to do something a little bit different. You guys know the deal. I'll be back tomorrow on the usual splash play time at 11 a.m. So stay tuned there. Thank you to our friends at Prediction for giving me this opportunity. Shout out to our producer, Caleb. Shout out to our guy, Aaron, behind the scenes as well, set this all up. And hey, hopefully this was helpful for you guys once we got things moving. So thank you for hanging out. See you guys again soon. Enjoy your days and good luck. Bye-bye.